This video is a follow-up to a video I did back in February, one where I analyzed The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. The impetus for doing that video came from my community, who saw a lot of similarity between that game and another series of games that I have covered frequently on this channel. That being the Team Ico games, Ico, Shadow of the Colossus, and The Last Guardian. Specifically, both games appeared to share the same metaphysics, in that every aspect of life was made up of not only a mixture of light and shadow, but also this magical turquoise substance. I made conclusions regarding what that substance was and the real-life occult counterpart it was based on, and though my theory was received well, I put it forward with limited knowledge of the Zelda games. At the time, I had only played Twilight Princess, along with Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. Now I have gone through multiple other games, and my original beliefs have only been solidified. This turquoise substance shows up everywhere, from the timeshift stones in Skyward Sword, to the Zonai technology in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, to the portals in Link's Awakening. Today, I want to loop in as many Zelda games as I can into my original theory in order to demonstrate that this substance is the same thing across all these games, and that it is based on a real-life concept from Western occultism and Eastern spiritualism. Before I do, remember to give this video a like if you end up liking it, and if you like the work I do here, please consider supporting me on Patreon or joining my YouTube membership section. I will leave links to both in the description box below. Before I start addressing the games directly, I will provide a quick recap of my theory. This will be a condensed explanation, so if you want to see all the evidence, feel free to go check out my original Twilight Princess video, which I will link in the description box below. So, due to the investigations done by both myself and arguably the most dedicated famous fan in the Team Ico fan community, Nomad Colossus, we surmised that the Team Ico games were inspired by the theories of the 16th century occultist Robert Fludd. He believed that every aspect of life was a mixture of three elements: light/order, darkness/chaos, and a substance which he referred to as both the waters and the spirit of the Lord. When God said, "Let there be light," into the dark chaos at the beginning of time, the first thing to emerge was the spirit of the Lord, and the substance underlied every aspect of life. This notion was deeply inspired by the Paracelsian medical movement of the 16th century, which suggested that every aspect of life had this Trinitarian makeup, reflecting the initial state of the Christian God. For example, he believed that every piece of matter in the universe was some combination of three primary chemicals: sulfur, salt, and mercury. He also thought this corresponded to a human being's spiritual and physical composition. In other words, sulfur was equivalent to the human soul, salt to the body, and mercury to the spirit. Now I want to focus in on the concept of the spirit and its correspondence to Fludd's idea of the waters/spirit of the Lord. But before I do, let me play devil's advocate for a second. First of all, how can we know for sure that what I am saying is true? And second of all, why would two completely separate Japanese franchises use an obscure Western metaphysical theory as the basis for their magic systems? I will cite two pieces of evidence in response. The first and less compelling piece of evidence is that the director of Twilight Princess, Eiji Aonuma, and the director of the Team Ico games, Fumito Ueda, have openly stated that they are friends and that both franchises have influenced one another. As for the second, more compelling piece of evidence, I believe that Fumito Ueda took interest in Fludd because his religious speculations inadvertently justified the Eastern spiritual perspective, specifically with the Taoist tradition. Just as Fludd believed every aspect of life was made up of light/order, darkness/chaos, and the spirit of God, Taoists believe the same thing, just by a different name. They believe every aspect of life is a mixture of the forces of yin, yang, and qi. In the case of qi, it served the same function as Fludd's conception of the Lord's Spirit. Both make up the passive matter that made up all substances. They are the life force, the foundation of all life. It's not that far-fetched to suggest this. After all, illustrating this underlying substance as turquoise is not unique to these games. The same thing happens in other Japanese games. There is the life stream in Final Fantasy VII. There's the concept of ether in Xenoblade Chronicles. Even a more recent game like Nine Souls, which explicitly references Taoism, illustrates qi as a turquoise substance. In each case, they all reference the same idea. In short, qi is the world's spirit. It is an eternal, all-powerful, and omnipresent force. It is not bound by time or space, but is in fact time and space itself. Now with my theory re-established, let's test it by applying it to as many Zelda games as possible. First, I want to focus in on the concept of qi as spirit. In Twilight Princess, we encounter the spirits of Hyrule's population in the Twilight Realm. These spirits are little balls of turquoise. Later on in the game, we can see the same glow emerging from beneath the skin of the Twilight species. I theorized that the reason we can see this glow is because the Twilight are a race that operate on the border between light and dark. Same with all the characters from the Team Eco games. The less light there is, the more the glow of the spirit shines beneath. One piece of evidence that supports this interpretation is when the Twilight character Midna is hit with a burst of light later on in the game. When this happens, the turquoise glow disappears. Outside of Twilight Princess, the spirit as a turquoise substance shows up in Skyward Sword. When Link enters the Silent Realm and needs to collect the tears, his spirit manifests as the Spirit Vessel. Before this, however, his spirit looks the same as the spirits in Twilight Princess. In Breath of the Wild, King Rhoam takes on a spirit form with a turquoise glow. In Tears of the Kingdom, the Sage of Spirit Mineru takes this form of the spirit before taking on their canonical Zonai form. Finally, the most intriguing piece of evidence comes from Ocarina of Time. Notice the shape on the face of the spirit medallion. It looks a lot like the yin-yang symbol, albeit with a space in the middle. I believe that this separation was made because in Taoist circles, the concept of qi is thought to be the center line in the Taoist symbol. By separating the yin and the yang, the medallion highlights the qi, the spirit that is produced by yin and yang and that which unites them in perfect harmony. Before I move on to other pieces of evidence, I want to just quickly hone in on the qi's ability to unite opposite elements. If it underlies every aspect of life, then it logically follows that it can bring even the most polar opposites together. In the alchemical theories of the aforementioned Paracelsus, the chemical that corresponded to the spirit was mercury, which was often symbolized as either a dragon or a snake. More specifically, it was often symbolized as a caduceus, a pair of intertwining snakes on a staff, wielded by a Roman god also named Mercury. Here are illustrations of the snake/Mercury uniting the personifications of the sun and moon, that being Sol and Luna, into a singular being known as the Rebus. In respect to Ocarina of Time, we see references to the same idea in the Spirit Temple. On some of the architecture, we see images of the coiling snakes. There are also the puzzles involving the union of the sun and moon, as well as with the final boss Twinrova. The twin witches embody the opposites of fire and ice, and they unite into a single being as the fight goes on. In respect to Twilight Princess, the pairs of snakes are seen everywhere on Twilight iconography. It appears on Midna's helmet, on the piece of jewelry hanging from her forehead, on the heads of the shadow beasts, on the back of the Mirror of Twilight, on the character Xanth's robes, and in his throne room. I suggest that the reason why the dual snakes are present here is because the Twilight species, like the concept of qi/spirit, sit on the border between opposites, between light and darkness, chaos and order. Now let's move beyond the qi as spirit and into the conception of qi as ether. Just like in the aforementioned Xenoblade Chronicles, ether is this substance that is all around us. It is the fabric of reality. It is space-time as a material. Qi is the same thing, and the Zelda series features multiple pieces of evidence to support this. Let's keep the focus on Twilight Princess for a second. If one can magically manipulate the force that underlies all things, the possibilities could be endless. One of the more harmless feats is creating rigidity out of the ethereal. We see this most prominently in the invisible blocks in the Palace of Twilight dungeon. We also see the same thing happen in the Team Eco games, as a matter of fact. Though the blocks aren't invisible in those games, they do appear out of thin air and exhibit a turquoise glow. A more sophisticated use of ether/chi is the creation of wormholes in time and space. After all, if ether is time and space, manipulating it to move from one location to the other would theoretically produce a turquoise glow. We see this happen when Link travels through wormholes in Twilight Princess. Not only that, we see the same turquoise glow when Link enters the portals and warp points in Link's Awakening. All three of these methods of traveling through time and space must necessarily use the ether, the chi, in order to accomplish such a feat. And speaking of Link's Awakening, did you ever notice how the 4 white balls circling the void do so in a way that is similar to the 4 moon children circling the tree in Majora's Mask? That might not be a coincidence. If you want to learn more about that, go check out my video on Link's Awakening, which I will link in the description box below. The most significant example of the turquoise glow, however, is probably the timeshift stones in Skyward Sword. Note, by the way, that the name for the timeshift stones in Japanese is not timeshift stone. Instead, it's space-time stone. With this in mind, one could adequately refer to it as ether stone, for both would be the same. These stones are mined by the ancient robots in the Lanayru Desert. They are likely crystallized forms of ether/chi that developed over thousands of years and then mined after the order was given by the goddess Hylia, in order to serve Link on his mission thousands of years later. This was done, of course, by using the timeshift stones to build the time gates, which also emit the turquoise glow and allow Link to not just move through space, but time as well. Unfortunately, the mining of the life force for this purpose likely played a part in the land turning from the once verdant landscape into the desert it is now. In respect to Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, this turquoise glow is omnipresent. As I stated at the beginning, the Ultra Hand exhibits this color, albeit one that tends to alternate between a more bluish and greenish color. This remains true for the material that powers it, the Zonai charges, and for the spirit energy that emerges from Raru's back when he attacks Ganondorf. The crystallized charges, the raw zonite, and the luminous stones, however, are closer to that original turquoise color. This pulsating between a more bluish and greenish turquoise is not unusual. Not only did the spirit substance in the Team Eco games vary between these colors, the same thing can be said for when it appears in other Zelda games. In respect to the timeshift stones in Skyward Sword, they start out as blue until they become activated, and then they emit a greener turquoise glow. Clearly, whether it's the Sheikah or the ancient robots working in the interests of the goddess Hylia or the Zonai race, both learned how to take chi as a raw material and industrialize it to create incredible pieces of technology. It is an obvious choice for a power source, and as a raw material to create implements. After all, it is the substance that births and sustains life, and when a life form dies, the spirit returns to the universal ether, ready to be reborn in perpetuity. Very much in keeping with Eastern perspectives on reincarnation. This gives the material the capacity to be eternally sustainable. As a fellow YouTuber, Nintendo Black Crisis has suggested, it's very possible that the Zonai used timeshift stones as the raw material for the ancient parts. Ancient screws never wear. Ancient springs never lose tension. Only a raw material like the Universal Spirit could prevent the loss of quality over 10,000 years. And finally, in keeping with the theme of timelessness, the Hyrule Historia suggests that the timeshift stones were the raw material for the Ocarina of Time. Just like the timeshift stones, it is blue in its raw form, but it produces a mystical light. Notice in this cutscene, when Link plays the Song of Time, a turquoise light appears behind him. Yet perhaps the greatest proof of all isn't found in any single color, symbol, or artifact. It's woven into the very spirit of The Legend of Zelda itself, the eternal cycle of life, death, and return. Link and Zelda are not merely reborn heroes, they are vessels through which the same cosmic breath continues to move, age after age. Like a snake shedding its skin, the form may change, but the underlying spirit remains the same. An endless renewal of the same divine essence. Whether that spirit manifests as the Ocarina, the Sheikah's sacred relics, or the radiant energy of the Zonai, it is always the same turquoise current, the spirit that flows between light and darkness, forever striving to reconcile them. even as the cycle begins anew. Thank you very much for watching my video. Remember to give it a like if you liked it, that helps me out a lot. And once again, special thanks to Gaming University for checking my ideas. Please let me know what you think of my ideas in the comment section below, and tell me what game in the Zelda series you think I should cover next. Is there a theory or a piece of the lore that you would like me to investigate? Let me know. Until next time, remember to stay safe and stay yellow.